Hello, this is Benita Hudson, your psychic life and business coach with my March forecast. As usual, we are using the Publishing Goblin's Oracle dice. It's always a great way of looking at patterns and seeing what's changing in the world, what's changing in our lives, and what we can do about that. Oh, the Accuser. I don't think I've ever seen that card before. That's quite something. So, that's the one that's representing this month. I'll take out our piece of die. Oh, everything actually stayed on the table today, but we will ignore the ones that aren't on the mat. Interesting, we only have one showing up in the core, so that's intriguing. We will start with our chaos die, which is right at the corner here. Now this is interesting. Again, it's an image I don't normally see. This one says flip, and it says take all the dice in its quarter and flip them so what's hidden on the bottom is now visible on the top. And there's only one in this quarter. Well, I guess this one and the one in the future. So we'll flip it over. We'll flip that one over. Okay, so that's what we've done with the chaos die. The other one we always like to look at is the fate die, because sometimes it tells us to adjust what we're working with as well. Make a change. And the fate die, oops, put that back the way it was. And the fate die is black light. Typically fills the quarter it ends up in with an absolute absence of luck, but a feeling that you can keep taking risks because the bad luck has to break eventually. No, it's just not a time for taking risks or leaving things to chance. So you might have that feeling, but it's not a good time to do that. Everything in that portion of the reading must be respected and analyzed. So the interesting thing about it is it falls under history. So it's saying in the past, that's been our situation where we kind of had to accept things as they were and analyze them and work with them. What I'm finding interesting this time, we've had in the past a lot of stuff sitting in the past. There's been a lot of working with our past patterns and bringing that work forward. Now there's only two sitting there. So that's very interesting to me, because normally we see a lot more going on there. There's a lot more happening in the present, a lot more happening under fated. So this is going to prove to be a very interesting reading, just given the way the die fell this time, which is quite unusual. So our actions die is under fated. And it is called Judgment. So isn't it interesting that we have a card for the month called the Accuser, and under fated, we have a dice called Judgment. And it says that this phase can be known as measurement, the need, desire, and action of weighing things in your life, whether they be people, your own actions, or your words, determining if they're good or bad, moral or immoral. So it's asking you to do that in the context of this reading. So it can be something like, should you take that new job or not? But no, it's not something. It's more a bigger question about morality, so pros and cons that have real weight in your life. So that's showing up under fated, saying this is going to be a month of really looking at your values. Am I living according to my morals, my beliefs? You know, a lot of times when I'm working with people and I'm talking about placing intention, if you place a high intention, you know, this is how I want to serve in this life, this is the kind of person I want to be or become, then that becomes your measuring stick for everything you do. What am I thinking about? What am I doing? Who am I spending time with? And is it moving me in that direction? Or is it a distraction? Or is it anchoring me to the past? So when we really look at how do I want to show up in the world, you know, how do I want to be, this is the sort of thing that we're looking at this month. So this is going to be very interesting. Our alchemist die. did it go? Oh, it's right here. So it's under foundation, prima materia. So it speaks to the ephemeral nature of pure reality. More often it relates to the raw stuff that is given to us. It is merely the core purity of things. And if it's given to you, you're given complete reign in determining what it becomes. So at its foundation, it's saying, and this is interesting, we have a lot of die sitting here. It's saying, this is the stuff, this is the foundation from which here you have choices about how you operate. I have never seen the die fall like this before. I'm really intrigued to see where this takes us. Now the alley die is one of the ones that got flipped over, and it shows two hands clasping, and it's under momentum, and it's about community. So it speaks to the need for being upheld by others, the need to do the same for them. So it's saying that everything that we're building towards, and we've been talking about this over the last several months if you've been following, is community is the solution to the things we're seeing in our world. We can't do things on our own. We have to work together if we want to be effective. So it's showing, this momentum of community is what's carrying us forward in the current situation. The attentions die is the spotlight, and it's showing up under foundation as well. And so it's the one it's about being known, being the center of attention. And so basically it announces that, you're here, it's time for you to be seen, to be shown. So in other words, we've done a lot of that internal work. Now it's about visibility, and part of the foundation of that is everybody's voices need to be heard. Whether that's in your personal life, whether it's in the broader scope of things, it's time to show up in the world. And we have a couple of die right near it, so we're going to see how they play a part as well. Our autumn die is showing up under fated, and it's time. It's a little hourglass. And it's the acceptance of things moving, of people growing, changing, leaving, that what matters to us most is what we do in the moment. So it's interesting to me that, we're looking at the way things, the whole judgment of things, the way things are weighing at this time, our morality, and that, what are we doing with our morality in the moment? Are we living it in the moment, or are we letting ourselves get distracted or losing heart, losing confidence? So it's really interesting to see how things are lining up under fated. It's literally a row all lined up together, which is kind of cool. Okay. The elements die is one of the ones that shows up right next to the foundation here. And this one is fire. So under the spotlight, the fire is showing up next to it. It says it offers extreme energy, focus, and drive when needed, but often burns itself away before completion. So when it's showing up with other people, it says it's a difficult characterizer. So it's drive and focus, but it can also be stubbornness and misdirection. So when we see it with spotlight, that's also suggesting you may have opportunities to step up and step forward. Use your energy wisely. Don't fritter it away. Use it intelligently with focus. Make sure that whatever you're doing, whatever's coming out of you, is relevant to the situation. And it's not a misuse of that. Goblin's die is way out on the corner here. Always a cute little figure, this little goblin. And it is abnormality. It draws attention to the facets of us that are strange or unique. No judgment in terms of positive or negative, merely points them as being relevant to the space, which makes sense because it's saying you can uniquely use the raw energy of the situation. In other words, show up the way that makes sense for you. It's not about copying what anybody else is doing. Our influences die shows up under fated as a ghost. There's a little ghost right here. So it's right next to the one that's about morality, and it informs you that something is behind something else. So it's looking at the hidden aspect. So when it shows up next to morality, I would say that's the shadow work. And it's looking at the stuff about ourselves we don't want to see. We want to see ourselves as good people, and sometimes that's a bit of a problem because we'll block anything that we don't want to be characterized as. So, for example, we might say, oh, I'm a peaceful person, but we've actually suppressed our anger. We have anger, we just choose not to express it. But it's still there, and given the right trigger, it's going to come out. So this is saying, yes, work on your morality, be clear on your values, but be willing to look at the things about yourself you don't want to see. You know, we are all capable of the most noble and the most heinous acts. But if we aren't paying attention to when am I being manipulative, when is my motivation not pure, we will miss those things, and they'll come out and affect other people. We'll only see them after the damage is done. So it's saying, you know, one of the things we're fated to do is shadow work. And there's a lot of shadow in the world right now. So one of the most challenging exercises one can do is to say, how am I like that? In what way am I like that person I see out in the world that I don't want to see myself as? It's humbling, for one thing, because we might say, okay, maybe I'm not expressing it in as big a way as that person is, but what are the little ways I do that? What are the little ways that I might express avarice, greed? In what little ways might I put myself first when somebody else might have a greater need? That's just one example. And then we can look at that, because we can never really change other people. We can always work on ourselves. Right? And as we change, the world around us is affected by that work we're doing on ourselves. The kindness die shows up as a little bow, and it says that a gift is coming to you. So this is very interesting to me, because it's saying, there's this, this little goblin energy here. It's being uniquely using the resources here for you, because there's energy for that. Energy is coming to you. In other words, if you will be willing to be seen, if you will show up however your life is asking you to, the universe is going to reward that. And that is a fundamental rule, and I've seen it time and time again with my clients. When I say to them, when you say yes to yourself, the universe says yes right back. And what I mean by that is when your intuition says, you need to go here, that's your path. Even though it's new, even though it's outside your comfort zone, even though it's challenging. When you do that, when you take some courage and you do that, the universe starts to give you more energy and starts to open up new avenues for you, because you're getting more and more aligned with the path your soul chose before you came into this life and got all the conditioning from parents, teachers, society that tell us who we can and can't do, be, and have. So when you start to really listen and you start to step out of your comfort zone into those new experiences, the universe goes, you've finally shown up. You're finally here doing what you said you were going to do. Okay, here's some energy to keep you going in that direction. If you're not getting what you need, you've either blocked it, or you're on the wrong path, or maybe slightly off the right path, and the universe isn't going to support that. So this is very interesting foundationally, because here it's saying, show up in the spotlight, there's energy for that, just make sure you're using it wisely. But at the back here, it's saying there's all these resources for you to show up uniquely. And if you're willing to do that, the universe is going to support that. Pretty interesting stuff. And the majors die is the one sitting in the core. So it's interesting. It says when this one, which is order, finds itself at the core, it views each of the quadrants of the reading to be unique spaces and would like you to read them as such as well. So each speaks a different part of the larger question. And I would say that's really shown up that way. This is very much show up uniquely, use your energy wisely, and you're going to be supported in that. This one's just about community, although there's one there in future that kind of ties in, that we'll see how it does. And then there's a whole lot going on under fated and inevitable. And there's just a couple going on in history. So it very much is working out like that. It's pretty cool. The Mariner's die also shows up under Fated, and it is an anchor. So this is considered a way of coming to rest. And so I find it interesting that it's saying, you know, look at the values that you're dealing with. What is underlying them? The shadow work. The coming to rest suggests that under Fated, there are simply those times where you have to sit still, go within, question your motivations, make sure you're really clear on what you're doing before you take your next step. It's saying there are times that introspection in this journey is absolutely necessary. Okay, so under Obstacles die, this is where we get our card, the Accuser. And it says, when the Accuser comes up in a reading, he challenges you. He places an obstacle before you, but knows that in overcoming it, you are made stronger. Your will is strengthened if it must be, or shaken if it was time to break from the wall you put on yourself and grow. The Accuser does not test us unfairly unless the unfairness of the test is itself the lesson. So it's saying, you know, we're going to be facing some challenges. These challenges are absolutely necessary to our growth. So, you know, we can all look at our own lives and say, okay, why me when something happens? Or why is this happening? What's the lesson here? What is the universe trying to teach me? So it's looking at it from that point of view. And our Obstacles die is showing up right on the border of Future and Fated. And it's Emergence. It's the phase of recognizing your power in the moment and rising up and beyond what has kept you from feeling free. So, makes a lot of sense. We've been talking here about the need to show up uniquely, do what you're here to do. And there's one other one next to it. So it's interesting. This one says, you know, rise up into your power, do what you need to do in the moment. And this one, the time one, is also about being present in the moment. So saying how important that is to show up. In other words, it's not an ongoing thing. It's saying there will be times that you will sense this is a moment in which I need to act. And you step into that moment. There's times for introspection, there's times for action. If you're paying attention, you'll know what's what when. Now we have the Spring die, which is showing up next to the Fate die. And the Spring die is, so it's interesting because this one is all about things not going your way. And it's basically saying there have been wounds in the past that may have affected how you see yourself in relationship to other people, relationship to a particular intimate person. But it's basically saying whatever happened then was just part of the journey. It's not something you need to attach to now. It's simply saying there's an echo from there, and that echo might have in the past caused you to play small, caused you to take a back seat. And it's sort of often isolated on its own now to say, just don't let that keep influencing you, because here under moving from past to present, you're building this foundation that's all about, but now show up as you came here to be. Show up as your soul intended you to be. And you're going to be supported in doing so. So very much these things are showing up in their own little quadrants. And now we are looking at this die, which has a wand on it. So it's the Suits die. And it says these simply speak to what kind of energy should be controlled or what energy should be directed towards. So this is interesting because these two are next to each other. It says your energy should be directed towards showing up in all your power in the moment as is needed. So that's just really direct. It's just saying in the future, there are going to be those moments you're going to be expected to show up and take action. Be willing to do that. Okay, the Summer die that shows up over here is a cup, like a chalice. And it's about excess. So it's interesting because we've kind of got two warnings with this one. It's saying the spotlight may be on you. You know, use your use this opportunity wisely, because fire can be energy that burns out, or it can be stubbornness. And careful about excess. In other words, it's really interesting the way these die line up here, because we have these three saying you're going to get opportunities to speak up and show up. Use them wisely, use them intelligently. Sometimes less is more, right? Don't run away with the situation and grandstand to the point that nobody's really listening. Don't cry wolf either. Be really clear and deliberate in what you're saying and doing. Because back of that, it's that we have all this raw energy coming our way to show up uniquely, and the universe is going to reward that. So it's almost like we have at the conscious level here, opportunity coming that we could misuse. So we need to remember back of that, what's the higher intention? How do we want to use that opportunity wisely so it benefits everybody? Because remember, we're moving into community here. Now, our winter die shows up under inevitable, and it's a cloud with snow coming out of it. It's called snow. And it's about the softening and covering things we've forgotten or things we can afford to forget. So in other words, it's also telling us with all this stuff going up under fated that says, we need to show up in the moment. We need to step into our power. We need to do it having checked our morals. It's also saying, don't forget this is a play. This whole life is an illusion. You're here to play a role. Just don't take it all so seriously that you get bogged down under it. Eventually, it will drop away, and you'll go into another life and have other experiences. So just make sure you're showing up in your role this time, doing what you came here to do, and fully participate so that you come away from this life satisfied that you stepped up and you did what you came here to do. But remember, it's one of many human experiences you will have as a divine being. The one that's right at the very end here in the corner is called gutted, and it's under the wounds die. It speaks to someone who feels so utterly destroyed, empty, often from a betrayal or a blindside, a horrible surprise. It's an element of surprise, not having suspected the situation, and almost always necessary. It's almost always necessary for this feeling. It's losing something you didn't even realize was so core to your life. So when I see that one, it's saying inevitably there will be struggles, there will be suffering. Remember, you got the accused card, which is all about being given a challenge. So it's saying that's inevitable. And I think the way we want to look at that is you can try to shelter yourself from what life is throwing at you, or you can step fully into it with courage. I always say there's two kinds of people in the world, those who are truly alive and those who are just trying not to die. So to be truly alive is to be given those challenges. As Pema Chodron put it, to be fully alive, to be fully human, to be fully awake, is to be continually thrown out of the nest. And that's what we're looking at here. We're going to have surprises we're not going to like. We're going to have challenges. If you just see that as inevitable, then you're no longer trying to control against it, because you can't, because you don't know when it's going to show up, hence the word surprise. But you're going to go into it with the attitude of, okay, I'm going to do the work to be aware of my shadow, to do the work so that I can show up effectively and as purely as possible in terms of my ethics, how I treat other people, how I treat my world. And when those opportunities come, I'm going to step into them with all my power. I'm going to step into them fully. I'm going to be willing to show up, be seen, not use that as an opportunity to manipulate, but to live fully. It's like the noble warrior, right? Stepping into that story of showing up fully as the best possible person that you can be in this type of situation. So when we show up fully, when we walk the path we came here to walk, there's a certain satisfaction in that. So on the other side of those scary things, on the other side of those challenges, there's the, I did it. and I'm different for it. I've grown because of it. I'm a stronger person as a result. So I think that when we look at this overall, it's basically saying, you know, you can't control the past, so be aware of when you're still letting that affect you. Let it be. I think the sex one is very much about what were you born into. You know, people will often say, well, this happened when I was raised and my parents did this. Fine. You can bemoan your childhood, or you can say, how did my soul choose those circumstances in order to help me grow? What was the lesson planted? What seeds were planted at that time that were the lessons I came to work on in this lifetime? If you look at it that way, you never go, why me? You go, okay, what did I come here to learn? Why did I need those experiences? What was it meant to teach me? What maybe desires to do something in this life were born out of those experiences that I had? That's how I would interpret those die. And then we've talked a lot about here showing up, but not letting ego run the show, right? Showing up with that purity that allows the universe to support that. Remember community. It's only touched on here, but it also moves into future where it's saying, you know, take that energy to apply yourself now to really show up. You're doing that in community. So make sure you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people, and that's always a good thing to do. Once you place the intent for where you want to go in life, you can check yourself. Who am I spending time with? What am I thinking about? What am I talking about? What am I doing? And is it moving me in that direction, or is it holding me back in some way? Is it anchoring me to my past? So bringing community into it is then going to put you in that situation where there's shadow work to do. There is a need to show up in the moment purely, fully as yourself when the universe requires that of you. And then let go. Let go. When you've taken any action and you've done what you can, let go of the outcome. You don't have control over that. Trying to hang on and create a certain outcome beyond what is your purview to do, that's manipulation. That's where we check ourselves. That's where shadow comes in. Am I trying to get other people to see it my way? Or am I just doing what I can do, and then am I letting go? Otherwise, we distort reality. So pay attention to what's being asked of you. Pay attention to when you're overstepping, and pull that back. And remember, the challenges you're being given are for your growth. So that's us for March. I look forward to seeing you guys in April. Bye for now.